Happiness is something I longed for a very long time. I was desperate to be happy, and I chased it in any way I could. I looked for it in working hard, partying even harder, and always needing to have something to look forward to. For some reason, happiness was never ever where I was in the moment. It was always a promotion away. It was always an alcoholic drink away, or it was always waiting for me in the holiday that I had planned months down the line. If this sounds like you, keep watching. Today, I'm sharing my story about how I finally found happiness after searching for it for so long. I'm Corey. I'm a trauma-informed mind-body practitioner, and I work with adult children of alcoholics to help them come out of survival mode, release shame, and finally start living a life on their terms. And today we're talking about how to find happiness. As I said, happiness was always something I chased, but was never seemed to be anything that I could catch. If you read over my journals from throughout the years, you would constantly read entries of, why can I not be effing happy? Or what is wrong with me? Why do I constantly feel like this? Nothing I ever did ever seemed to be able to bring me lasting happiness. And it was so frustrating, so disheartening. And at one point I was just like, I just think I'm destined to never feel true happiness in life. And sure, there were fleeting moments of happiness. I'm not going to stand here and say I never felt happy throughout my life. Of course, I felt moments of happiness, like times when I was out with friends, on holidays, enjoying fancy dinners, but it was always surface level, and I was craving a much deeper feeling of happiness. I wanted a happiness that would allow me to wake up in the morning without that feeling or sense of dread of the day to come, or like dread of how I was going to feel throughout that day. And in 2018, I really got into personal development. I really got into Tony Robbins and watching like motivational videos on YouTube. And at that time, I got this idea in my head that if I become a millionaire, then I'll be happy. I thought once I had that money in my bank account, that of course all of my problems would just be taken away with it. So I spent years making so many stupid decisions because they were driven by this desperation to be happy. Like anytime an opportunity would present itself to me that would give me the idea that maybe this is going to result in me somehow becoming a millionaire, I would take that opportunity, and I would be so blinded, like the risks or the negative aspects of that opportunity would be so glaringly obvious to other people, but I wouldn't be able to see them because my desperation, it wasn't driven by money. Okay, even though I thought it was, and in that moment, like looking back now, it was clear to see like my desperation was so hard and like so, I don't know, desperate for lack of a better word, because I was so desperate to be happy. And that need, that like really deep need to be happy, was what was causing me to make these really, really stupid decisions. And over time, it took me making the same mistake 3 times, like putting myself in a similar situation, but just in a different way, 3 times for me to actually realize I am doing this out of a desperation to be happy, not because this is actually the right choice for me to make. And it was only after the 3rd time that I put myself in this situation where I was in such a toxic workplace. I was putting up from shit from a boss because I believed that he would lead to me becoming a millionaire, that I was just like, F this, like I can't do this anymore. If this is the road to happiness, and if this is what's going to result in me being happy, then I don't want it. So in that moment, I made the decision to actually stop allowing my desperation to be happy to drive my decisions, and to actually get curious and to understand, why was I having this desperate need in the first place? Why wasn't I able to feel happiness internally? Why did I constantly have to attach happiness to these external things? And I didn't get all the answers straight away, but I knew I couldn't keep living and making decisions the way I was. But what I did start doing was started making like some very small changes that compounded over time, that actually eventually led to me finding inner happiness. The thing that I was desperately chasing for so long that I didn't actually realize I had all along. I just didn't know how to access it. So today I want to take you through exactly what I have done to find happiness. Not the surface level happiness that fades away after you get the thing you want. Like, for example, there's been so many times throughout the years that I've always wanted this like really big modern house, and always wanted this like big fancy house, because again, like the millionaire thing, I thought that that's what would bring me happiness. But it's not about how big and fancy the thing is that you want, because have you ever realized that, so you want this new car or you want this new gadget or whatever it is, and you're like, yep, once I get that, I'm going to be happy. And you get it and you are happy, probably for about 10 minutes. And then after that, you feel exactly like you felt before. So it's like, yes, aiming for these things, it will give you happiness, but very short burst of happiness. It's not going to give you lasting fulfillment over time. That lasting fulfillment has to come from within. And today I'm going to give you exactly how I got that lasting fulfillment. But what I want to note is this is what worked for my life. And I want to share this with you for you to get some inspiration to implement things into your own life, or to help you understand that there are certain things you actually can do that will help you find inner happiness. But I'm not saying you have to copy everything that I'm telling you, okay? This is what worked for me. Take what works for you and implement that into your own life. I'm going to go through on the whiteboard. I've got my trusty whiteboard again, and I'm going to be noting down everything. All right. So get your pen, get a piece of paper, get your phone, get your journal, whatever it is. And I want you to note down the ones that really resonate with you. Because this is something I always tell my clients is people get so disappointed when they watch videos like this online, or Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is, of someone giving advice about something that worked for them personally. And people try to implement that into their own life, like exactly how the other person did it, but then end up getting disappointed, ended up feeling like a failure because it doesn't fit in with your life. It doesn't fit in with how things look for you. So to prevent you getting disappointed, to prevent you going down a path that may not work for you, please just take whatever feels aligned with your life at the moment. So the first thing that I did to find lasting fulfillment and happiness was to find stillness in my life. And stillness is a big thing I talk about when I'm talking about like nervous system regulation or healing in general. Because when we are constantly go, we are not allowing ourselves the space that we need to regulate our nervous system, to calm the body and the mind down, to integrate any of the hard healing work that we've done. So the most important thing that I actually allowed myself to do on my quest to finding lasting happiness was start to introduce some stillness into my life. Because as I said, up until that point, I was working hard, partying harder, constantly had things to look forward to. Like in 1 year, I went on 5 holidays. Like I just constantly needed things booked in and having something to look forward to. And I've never, ever given myself the opportunity or the chance to be still, to understand what comes up for me when I actually take away all the noise. When I take away all of the noise that's coming in, what actually comes up for me? Like, how do I feel? So the first thing I would recommend to anyone who's trying to find some sort of internal happiness is to introduce some stillness into your life. And how I did that was I did it through a morning routine. So I'm a really big morning person, but you may be a night owl, or you may enjoy like downtime in the evening. So again, whatever works for you. But I started to carve out a morning routine. I started to wake up earlier than I actually needed to give myself time in the morning to sit, to be still, to journal, to meditate, to just sit there and drink a coffee and actually just have a bit of mindfulness in my life. One thing this also allowed me to do, and I talk about this a lot in other videos, is this stillness allowed me to stop running from how I was feeling. So I stopped running away from the negative emotions in my life, and I actually started allowing myself to feel them. And the amazing thing is that when you create stillness to give those emotions space to come up, they actually get less intense. And it seems counterintuitive that when we're like trying to avoid the horrible and scary feelings of like anger or guilt or shame or rage, that like of course we want to push them away because like we don't want to feel them because they're negative. But it's actually the opposite. You need to feel them for them to get less intense and for them to stop controlling your life. So one is finding stillness and space, to allowing yourself to just be by yourself, for allowing to whatever needs to come up for you to come up. So the second thing I did was I learned how to express my feelings, and that's kind of linked to the first one. So the second point here is expression. But I did this expression not through vocally expressing how I was feeling. I actually did it through journaling, because I am someone who really struggled to, or has struggled in the past, to verbalize how I'm feeling, to verbally express how things are making me feel or how things are impacting me in my life. So what I learned to do was, I learned that step one, the stillness, was bringing up emotions for me and bringing up memories and just bringing up stuff from the past, from growing up with an alcoholic parent. So what I did was I started journaling. I started writing out how things were making me feel, how things impacted me, what I wanted to feel, how I wanted to show up. What were the emotions that I was feeling? What were the things that were holding me back? What was I scared to say out loud to my alcoholic parent? Or what was I scared to say to my partner? Or because I was so afraid to be vulnerable. So this was my opportunity. This was my safe space. This allowed me to find safety. The journaling, the writing, expressing myself through putting a pen to a piece of paper allowed me to find safety that I'd never ever had in expressing myself before. Because as children of alcoholics, when we're growing up in that chaos, it doesn't feel safe for us. We don't feel supported. Well, I know a lot of us don't. We don't feel supported in expressing how having an alcoholic parent is impacting us. What is that doing to our self-worth, to our self-esteem, to how we actually view ourselves? We don't know how to do that when we're children, and we're not, again, in my case, you're not encouraged to do that as a child, especially in the environment of having an alcoholic parent. You have to find that for yourself. You have to carve that out yourself. So second one was, I actually allowed myself to express what was going on in a safe space of journaling and writing. Writing is so powerful. And if you're like me and you struggle to vocabularize how you're feeling, start writing. It's going to change your life. Number 3, which again is kind of linked to 1 and 2, but I started finding my voice in my relationship. And not just, I don't mean like I didn't have a voice in my relationship, so like I was passive in the relationship and my partner was just like going along. That's not what I meant. It was finding my voice in conflict. So finding voice, because adult children of alcoholics especially, we struggle with conflict in romantic relationships. We don't know how to manage it in a healthy way, the majority of us. So I find that a lot of my clients will really struggle how to effectively communicate with their partner when they come up against conflict in their relationship, myself included. This is something that I still have to work on. I've been working on this for like 5 years now. I'm still struggling with it. So it's not an overnight fix. This one for me, for whatever reason, is the hardest thing for me to work through. But finding your voice, I should say finding voice. Finding your voice in conflict allows you again to express what you've been holding on to. So if something happens in your relationship and you're having an argument and you really want to express yourself, but you find that the words are getting caught in your throat, you're not allowing then anything to get resolved. You're carrying and you're continuing to carry the burden of what it is you really want to say, but you find it really difficult to say it. So instead of bottling up all of my feelings when we were having conflict, I actually allowed myself to start expressing that slowly and slowly. And what I started to notice was like a massive increase in my happiness levels, because I started to build up the confidence in my ability to express what I needed in times of conflict. Number 4, and this was a really big one for me because, as I've mentioned, I have always needed something to look forward to. So I actually learned to appreciate the things that I have, or that I had in the current moment. And that was a massive, massive step in me finding internal happiness. So step 4, appreciate what you currently have. Appreciate the present. And this is really difficult. Like, people don't just decide one day, oh yes, I am going to appreciate the present moment, and then all of a sudden from here on in, I'm appreciating the present moment. For me, it didn't work like that. I actually had to do things to help me appreciate the present moment. And the things that I did was, as I mentioned before, I journaled. And in that journaling, I wrote out 3 things I was grateful for every day. I did affirmations. So I spoke things into the present, like, I am aligned with the life that I want to live. I am happy and at peace. I am calm and safe. All of these really positive, reinforcing affirmations. I journaled my emotions. So I started expressing how I was feeling. I meditated. So I was able to allow myself to find peace in the present moment. And meditation is so powerful, so difficult, especially for people who are in a state of survival. It's very, very hard to sit down and meditate. But when you can actually calm the body and to help you calm the mind, and you can find some stillness in meditation, meditation was really a big game changer for me in allowing me to find calmness, to find the ability to sit with myself for 15, 20 minutes and feel fully at peace. And another thing was, I really started to romanticize like the simple things in life. And what I mean by romantic or romanticize is my morning coffee. I really started to sit down and enjoy that. Or walking to the local coffee shop. I really started making that like a feel good activity. Or going food shopping. I'd turn it into a self care moment where I'd get myself a lovely coffee. I'd put on a really good podcast. And I'd use that as like an hour of just enjoying time by myself. So I really had to switch my mindset of things like, oh, I have to do this, and turning it into, how can I make this enjoyable? How can I switch my mindset and actually turn this into something that I really enjoy doing? Because life is made up of the everyday mundane moments, but we forget that. We think that life is the big things that happen. We think that life is the big grand moments, like the promotions or buying the house and having the baby. And yes, that is all life, but life, day-to-day life, the life that we live every day doing the mundane, boring shit, like that is life. So for me, it was so important in learning how to just romanticize the mundane, boring, everyday life, because that really allowed me to start finding internal happiness. It really allowed me to start changing my mindset and realizing happiness is in the here and now. My happiness is not in 10 years' time when I've got $1 million in the bank account, or I'm driving the Ferrari or the Lamborghini. No, happiness is actually now. I can really wake up and feel gratitude and feel grateful for what I have and really enjoy these mundane moments. So honestly, for me, this step number 4, appreciating the present moment, was a massive, massive turning point in just being able to wake up and be like, you know what? Things are not that bad. Number 5 is movement. And you might wonder, how does moving your body bring happiness? But bringing the body into your happiness journey is so, so important, because remember, mind body connection, guys. What's impacting the mind is impacting the body, and vice versa. So movement for me was a massive, massive part of allowing myself to feel lasting happiness. And not just any type of movement, doing things that I like and enjoy. So many of us drag ourselves to the gym, drag ourselves to do these exercises that we absolutely hate. And I'm like, why? Why are you doing that? Find something that you love. For me, it was yoga, and I introduced yoga daily into my life. And when I started doing that, when I started showing up and doing something I enjoyed, movement no longer felt like a chore. It no longer felt like something I had to do, but something I look forward to doing. So if you're introducing a daily movement, and I would really, really recommend doing some sort of daily movement, pick something you like. Pick something you enjoy that you know you're going to stick to, because that again you're going to feel happy doing it, and you're going to feel happy after. All of these really feel good endorphins that get released. Like, think back to a time when you were in a really shit mood and you went out and had a really brisk walk and put good music in and put a podcast on or whatever it was, or went with a family member or went with a friend or the dog, and you came back and you felt good. Well, that's because the feel good endorphins are pumping through your body. That is what is going to help you feel happiness on a daily basis. Because remember, as children of alcoholics, the majority of the time our baseline is not happy. Unfortunately, we're just not them people. So we have to do the extra. We have to go the extra mile to have a baseline of happiness. Number 6, and again, a really important part of my journey, is routine. Building a routine to support my happiness. Now, this is something, if you're a client of mine, I will harp on about all the time, about having a solid foundation in place in your life that is going to support you on your healing journey, that's going to support your mind, your body, and your soul. And for me, this routine has changed everything. I'm a morning person, as I said, so my routine is a morning routine, an AM routine. But your routine could be a nighttime, it could be a midday, it could be whatever works for you. But for me, that routine is like waking up early, not looking at my phone first thing in the morning, drinking water in the morning and not having caffeine for the first hour or so, making sure I've got a high protein breakfast, limiting alcohol or no alcohol, to be honest. That's been like that for quite a while for me now. Limiting screen time, be mindful who I follow online. Like, if you're seeing accounts online and they're making you feel shit about yourself, unfollow them. You don't have to follow them. Why are you allowing simple, silly things like that impact your happiness? So create a routine that's going to give you a solid foundation to support you in being happy, whatever that looks like in your life. And lastly, I learned how to say no. And this is a massive one, okay? Learning to say no has increased my happiness levels by I do not know how much, but it's been a lot. I stopped committing to things that I did not want to do. I found myself, like in the past, I'd be super, super busy for work. And again, because I would be desperate to be a millionaire and because that's how I thought I was going to be happy, I would take on all of these extra things and I would be miserable. I would be so, so happy. But I kept saying yes when I wanted to say no because I was desperate. So stop overcommitting to things, or stop prioritizing other people's needs and wants over your own. Learn to say no to the things that you don't want to do and say yes to the things that you do. This is going to save your energy levels. You're going to stop being resentful because you said no or because you said yes when you really wanted to say no. And your overall level of happiness is going to be so much more higher, because when you stop doing things that you don't want to do, you're creating space to do the things that you do want to do. You're creating space in your life for the stuff that's going to help you feel happy. So these are my 7 pretty simple steps that I implemented into my life that have allowed me to find lasting and fulfilling happiness. Like, it's really, when I look back now and when I reflect on how I felt before I started doing this work, I actually find it difficult to really contemplate and understand how I felt so bad back then, because I'm completely chalk and cheese now. I have such a higher baseline of happiness that I never thought I'd actually be able to have. I have so much internal satisfaction and happiness and gratitude that I never ever had. But I would never have gotten to this point, guys, if I didn't do anything to make myself get to that point, if that makes sense. Like, I have to take action to allow myself to build my baseline of happiness, to allow myself to feel grateful for what I have, to allow myself to wake up and feel content and fulfilled with life, and to stop chasing things out of desperation, to stop allowing my desperation to be happy, to cloud my judgment, and stop putting myself in really shitty, toxic situations just because there was like a tiny little bit of hope that it would somehow lead to my happiness. So these changes, they're not overnight changes, unfortunately, like all of this healing work. But over time, with consistency, with allowing yourself to put some steps in place, you will start to feel happier. It takes time, it takes patience, and it's probably going to take a lot of trial and error. A lot of trial and error of figuring out what works for you and what doesn't. And that's okay. But once I started focusing on internal happiness and stopped chasing the external, my whole life changed. And I really want that for you as well. If you could relate to this video, or if you found it helpful on your own journey, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I can't wait to bring more content like this to help you to continue to grow on your healing journey as a child of an alcoholic.